Nicola, delighted to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in. You've got a campaign going to improve the nutritional value of food banks. Tell me a bit about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, so I'm an ambassador for Strong Roots. We're trying to help make veg poverty history by supplying frozen veg to food banks. It's quite close to my heart because I was shocked to hear that 1 in 4 people, 4 families, can't afford to buy the vegetables and the nutrition that they actually need, especially for the kids as well. And a lot more people are using food banks now, even more so during the pandemic. And I was just shocked to find out that information. So now my mission is to eradicate that and help all these families be able to eat vegetables and be able to stay healthy, because I guess coming from being an athlete, and I know how important it is to be able to eat healthy and to be able to have the right nutrition. Yeah. I just think it's sad that there's so many children and families that are going without.
And in terms of where the vegetables are coming from, have you got partnerships going with big companies, or how's it working?
Yeah, so they're supplying freezers with the frozen vegetables in the food banks, because a lot of the food banks, they can't really have fresh vegetables because they don't really keep for long. No. So it's a hard thing to keep. So this way, it's a lot easier for them to get the vegetables in. They can bang them in the freezer. They stay for a lot longer, and it's helping a lot more people.
Now, you're obviously most famous for, you're a brilliant boxer. You won a gold medal. Everywhere I go at the moment, if I walk through a park, there are people doing boxing training. I mean, it's massively on the... Is that all down to you? Is that your example?
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I can take all the credit, but it's just one of those sports. It works your whole body, and it's very easy to do.
And there's so many women doing it now, aren't there?
Yeah, there is. There's loads of women doing it now, and it's great to see. It's good for self-defence. It's good for state of mind, and it keeps you healthy and fit.
Now, although sport is something that brings us together, one of the sort of more depressing aspects of the sort of times we're living in is, you see anger and you see division even in sport. So, I mean, the government has been refusing to criticise those who go to football matches and boo when they see footballers taking the knee in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. Do you think the government should do more to call out those people who are booing?
Yeah, I think they should. I think it's not just the people booing. I think if racism wasn't a problem, we wouldn't need campaigns like Black Lives Matter or like Stop Online Abuse. We wouldn't need campaigns like that. So I feel like until these things are resolved, you should be able to campaign against it. I would not want to be doing the sport that I love, knowing that people are chanting racist things at me. Sport's supposed to be about inclusivity and enjoyment and having fun and, forget all the other stuff. It's not supposed to be about that.
Amber, are you surprised that the government won't stand in solidarity with the England manager and just simply say, taking the knee is very much a personal choice, it's an important thing, and it's appalling that people should be booing it?
I think that the government makes interesting choices about what it gets involved with and not. But I do observe that I think it's more effective to have had Gareth Southgate explain to us why his team are about more than being footballers and why it's important to them. And him participating and writing his incredibly powerful letter is much more effective than the government getting involved.
Sure, but your friend Oliver Dowden and indeed the Prime Minister have, by contrast, said that the cricketer Ollie Robinson, shouldn't be under review and left out of the team for... alleged sexist, and it's odd that he wades in, to defend somebody who has allegedly made racist remarks, but won't call out people who some are saying are behaving in a racist way.
I agree with that, and I think it's much more powerful to hear from Nicola, for instance, and from Gareth Southgate explaining to people that's why it's important. There is still racism in sport, needs to be addressed, and people need to take action.
And, I mean, I was quite struck again that the government decided to weigh in, when those Magdalen College students took down a picture of the Queen. Now, lots of people, love the Queen and think the picture shouldn't be taken down. But, Ollie Robinson is regarded as sort of teenage hijinks and he gets off. But these students are sort of described as terribly bad people. It sort of slightly feels like a culture war of double standards, doesn't it?
Well, it's really eccentric, isn't it? And I agree with Amber that they're picking the oddest of fights. And certainly regarding the picture of the Queen, I love the Queen. And I just think it's quite divisive to be wading in and trying to, get people to take sides, to divide us even further. And can I just say that Nicola's point is absolutely right. We wouldn't need, show racism the red card unless we had racism in our society. And Gareth Southgate led by example, and the pride and the elegance with which he wrote that letter. I mean, that should be required reading for all young people in school, because it was a beautiful piece of writing, that you are a leader and you are responsible for your actions, and you should be entitled to voice your opinion.
Now, that's a phrase I've never thought I'd hear. A beautiful piece of writing by an England manager. In the past, that would not be something one would expect. Nicola, if I could come back to you, because we've got these extraordinary Olympics coming up, probably with no fans in the stadium. It's been incredibly hard for athletes to train. Have you sort of have you thought about what it would have been like for an athlete building up to these Olympics?
It would have been I guess it'd be more strange, competing at the Olympics with no crowd.
But training must have been very difficult this past year, mustn't it?
Yeah. I was actually doing a bit of commentating on the qualifiers for the boxers, and man, when I saw the competition, you wouldn't even believe that they've had a year out.
Oh, really?
The
standard is really up there.
The standard, the fire. I mean, we've got 11 boxers qualified for the Olympics, and they're all capable of winning medals.
So do you think there's a chance we'll get a gold?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I feel like we'll get at least 2 or 3 golds. Pat McCormack, Lauren Price, maybe even 3. Caroline Dubois. We've got some really, really strong boxers and a strong team.
It's very exciting. If I could just come back to you, just to sort of go back to this issue of the sort of subjects that the government wades into. There are quite a lot of people, and I'm probably one of them, who think that actually this focus on identity, what's sort of called culture wars, is ultimately going to be very damaging to this country. We only have to look at America, where people are losing, sort of confidence, frankly, in democracy itself.
Yeah, it is divisive, and I prefer politics that isn't as deliberately divisive as that. But it is, nevertheless, a political choice that the government's making to try to assert itself in these areas, to show who it is.
I mean, can I ask you, Tracy, if you were Labour leader, how would you deal with it? I mean, Keir Starmer doesn't really wade in very often to any of this stuff. He sort of ignores it most of the time.
Well, and with good reason, because there are other bigger issues to be discussing. But just to pick up on the identity issue, I do think something else is changing in society, and you've seen that in the last elections and the mayoral elections, and the Welsh Government, that sense of people holding on to an identity, whether you're a Mancunian or whether you're from Yorkshire, and the idea that somebody represents you who understands you and is from your community. I wonder whether we are now going to a more localised identity of who we are, and we're looking for leaders who have lived the life we've lived and speak like us and want the same things, and whether that's better buses, whether that's more jobs for young people or better housing. I think there's that more. I think that's why Labour did so well in the mayoral elections.
I mean, control over one's lives and the decisions that matter obviously matters, but equally we've also got to recognise we've got so much in common, and too often the problem with focusing on control is we divide ourselves from other people. Now, sadly, there's so much more to talk about all that, but I can't do that because that's it for tonight. I'm off to Cornwall to stand on a beach in the sun, eat fish and chips, and report on the first face-to-face meeting of the leaders of the world's richest countries since the start of the COVID crisis. It's a blooming tough job. Somebody's got to do it. See you next week.